During every Labor Day weekend, I always remember my dad who passed away. Labor Day was very special in our family, and it's a time when we make sure to keep his memory alive. Let me paint a picture of the moment to help you understand better. When I was a teenager, I was lying on my bed, listening to my Sony CD Walkman. My ex-boyfriend had given it to me as a gift for our 2-year anniversary. I can even recall the song I was listening to because I had it on repeat. The song was called Drive by a band called The Cars. This song brought me comfort during a time when I was feeling really sad and hopeless. It felt as if the song had been written just for me. I was really sad because my boyfriend and I had recently broken up, or should we say, I was dumped by him unexpectedly. He was a popular football player in high school, and I was a cheerleader. We had been dating for more than 2 years. I suspected that he was seeing other girls because he was such a catch, but just like most teenage girls, I believed I was the one who was really special to him. We would exchange gifts and tell each other, "I love you." Of course, looking back now, I understand things differently. It turns out he had been dating all the cheerleaders, not just me. He was the most popular guy in school, and every girl wanted his attention. Thanks to my mom's attractive genes, I felt quite attractive, and because of that, I thought I had the first chance. But on that day, I discovered that he had broken up with me. We had plans to travel to Mexico for the Labor Day weekend, and it was supposed to be a special getaway. It was really embarrassing because we had been planning this for a long time. We had never traveled together out of state, let alone out of the country, which was something he had promised me. I had even told my parents and my 2 older brothers who had come home from college that we used to go on a fishing trip together because it had always been a family tradition on Labor Day weekends. But this time, I was supposed to go to Mexico with my now ex-boyfriend. I shared with all my friends about the trip, and every girl in school knew, hoping to show everyone that he was taken and to discourage other girls from pursuing him. Can you believe that a day before the trip, he not only broke up with me, but also revealed that he was now involved with 2 other girls? To make matters worse, I was friends with these 2 girls, and they were aware of our upcoming trip. They felt jealous and offered him a threesome, and he chose to go with them instead. It was a heartbreaking, humiliating, and utterly betraying experience, and I became the subject of laughter and gossip. So the song Drive felt like the perfect fit for my mood at that moment. At that time, my mom was 46 years old, and my dad was 47. I have 2 older brothers, who are 19 and 21 years old. Even though my brothers were away at college, they always returned home for a family Labor Day tradition of fishing at the Big Lake in Lake Calcasieu, Louisiana. This lake is renowned as one of the world's top hotspots for trophy speckled trout, which happens to be one of the most abundant and delicious fish you can find in the southern saltwater. We could catch speckled trout weighing between 9 to 11 pounds, and fishing was something that ran in our family. It was something that ran in our family, inherited from my dad. While my dad, my brothers, and I enjoyed our time out on the water, my mom didn't share the same enthusiasm for fishing. Instead, she often chose to work extra hours as a nurse or spend time doing other activities with her friends while we were away from home for those 2 days. While I was upstairs, lost in the music playing through my headphones, I suddenly heard a loud bang. I knew instantly that it was the sound of our front entrance door. You see, it always made a raucous noise when you let it slam shut because my dad had been meaning to fix it for the longest time. The unexpected loud noise of the door closing abruptly jolted me awake. I hadn't anticipated anyone being home since my mom was at work, and my dad was out fishing with my 2 older brothers. But then I heard my mom's familiar and vibrant voice. She was her usual cheerful self, laughing heartily and creating quite a commotion. I briefly took off my headphones, thinking my mom was on the phone. However, instead of hearing only her voice, I heard a deep male voice in the background. It wasn't anyone from my family or extended family, and this unfamiliar voice piqued my curiosity. But I was feeling really down and lacked the energy or desire to investigate, so I just lay there on my bed. While I couldn't make out what they were saying, I could sense the vibrations when the man spoke. Their conversation gradually grew quieter and quieter, and then I heard my parents' bedroom door close. Their bedroom was located downstairs. That's when all sorts of alarm bells started ringing in my head, and I knew I had to find out what was happening. I quickly had a feeling that something wasn't right. I began to suspect that my mom might have brought a man home, even though I had never suspected or believed that my mom would cheat on my dad. Hearing an unfamiliar male voice entering our house with my mom and then heading into my parents' bedroom, it was pretty obvious what might be happening. Even someone who might not understand much could figure out what was going on. However, to be absolutely sure that my mind wasn't playing tricks on me and that I wasn't imagining things, I knew I had to get off my bed and investigate to find out the truth. I carefully stepped out of my bed and made my way down the short hallway. My goal was to descend the staircase as quietly as possible, not wanting to make any noise that would alert them to my presence. As I slowly descended the stairs, the unmistakable sounds of both of them engaging in intimate activity became more evident. My curiosity had piqued, and I felt compelled to identify who this person was, as the situation had taken a dramatic turn. It goes without saying that I was utterly shocked. Every word they exchanged felt like a sharp knife twisting in my gut. The laughter and whispered conversations pierced through me like a blade. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mom, whom I had always regarded as the most virtuous person in my life, was involved in an affair with a complete stranger, while my dad was away. A whirlwind of emotions engulfed me. Anger, sadness, and confusion swirled within, creating a turbulent storm of feelings. What hurt the most was the fact that I had been completely unaware of the situation. I had been cheated on by my boyfriend, and I despised cheating. The pain ran deep. I felt an intense urge to burst into my parents' bedroom, to confront them, and to demand answers. However, fear gripped me tightly. I hesitated, held back by the dread of witnessing the moment when my mom would realize that I had heard every word. Time seemed to slow down, stretching minutes into what felt like endless hours. I remained on the stairs, ensnared by the tumultuous whirlwind of my thoughts. There was no escape from the harsh reality of the situation unfolding before me. My innocence was shattered, my family appeared irreparably fractured, and my heart had been shattered into countless pieces. The echoes of my mom's betrayal reverberated in my ears, serving as a painful and constant reminder that life could change in an instant, leaving behind nothing but anguish and uncertainty. This experience left a profound impact on my teenage mind, and its effects continue to linger to this day. I couldn't fathom how someone could claim to love another person and then betray them in such a devastating manner. I could sense that they were getting ready to come out, and I was still positioned on the middle stair near my parents' bedroom. If I moved any lower, they might spot me if they opened the door immediately. During that time, cell phone videos weren't a thing, and my cell phone could only take pictures. So I decided to go back upstairs slowly and grab my brother's camcorder. Then I returned downstairs and began recording. The camcorder could capture audio, albeit faintly. I positioned myself discreetly, hoping to capture the moment when my mom and the stranger emerged from my parents' room. Eventually, I heard the doorknob turn, and I braced myself to avoid getting caught. They both came out confidently, as if they were certain that nobody was home. And to my surprise, I saw the man's face. I recognized him. He was in his late 20s, and lived 2 doors down as our neighbor at that time. He was married and had 2 young children. My mom used to wave to him and his family when we drove past their house. Never in my wildest dreams had I suspected that they were having an affair. I felt a surge of anger towards my mom, feeling that she was behaving just like my ex-boyfriend had, betraying my dad in such a way. After the neighbor left our house, I hurriedly went upstairs to return my brother's camera to its place. Unfortunately, my mom must have heard some commotion and decided to investigate. When I noticed that she was coming upstairs, I was in my brother's room, trying to put the camcorder back. In a feeble attempt to hide, I slipped underneath my bed, but my clumsy self had part of my clothing sticking out, making it pointless to conceal myself. I eventually came out, and my mom was visibly shocked to see me at home. She placed her hand on her chest, looking as though she might have a heart attack. She asked me why I was hiding under my brother's bed, instead of being off to Mexico with my boyfriend. In response, I corrected her by emphasizing that he was my ex-boyfriend. In a somewhat sarcastic tone, I mentioned that I had caught him cheating and then stormed out of my brother's room. As if delivering a punchline that indirectly conveyed to my mom that I had discovered her own affair. She followed closely behind me, attempting to convince me that I hadn't witnessed what I clearly had. Granted, she didn't know how much I knew or whether I had actually seen the neighbor. However, she confessed that the man was indeed the neighbor and stressed that he had just been there to collect something, insisting that nothing had happened between them. But I knew he had been collecting something entirely different, and it certainly wasn't a garden tool, unlike my mother. I felt angered that she was trying to manipulate me, as though I were still a little girl who could be easily fooled. She left, thinking that she had managed to sway me with her explanation, believing she had the upper hand. However, I was left feeling visibly shaken by the entire ordeal, realizing that her secret might no longer remain a secret. Typically, my mom holds a lot of sway and influence in my life. If it weren't for the fact that my ex-boyfriend had cheated on me and then dumped me, my eyes might not have been open to the betrayals that people you love can inflict upon you. When my dad and brothers returned from their trip, they discovered that I hadn't gone to Mexico due to my relationship issues. My mom kept checking on me and went the extra mile to ensure that I had indeed bought her story about the neighbor coming over to collect something. She became unusually attentive to both me and my dad all the time, but I had already decided that I would expose her. I was in a very dark state of mind, and I redirected the anger I felt towards my ex-boyfriend onto my mom because I understood the pain of betrayal, especially from someone you love. Around a week later, when my mom believed she had gotten away with her affair, I decided to tell my dad what I had witnessed during the Labor Day weekend. I waited until my mom wasn't at home and shared the details with my dad, except for the part where I had recorded them. I didn't do this intentionally. I genuinely believed that once I told my dad, everyone would believe me and my mom would come clean. However, things didn't turn out the way I'd hoped. So my dad confronted my mom about what I had told him, but my mom vehemently denied the entire thing and accused me of lying. At first, my dad believed me, but my mom used the fact that my ex-boyfriend had recently dumped me and that I was going through some emotional struggles. She suggested that I see a therapist, implying that she held the moral high ground over me. It was as if she viewed me as a mental patient in need of institutionalization just because I was telling the truth. In a way, she wasn't entirely wrong because I was deeply hurt and not operating at my best. I had redirected the anger I felt towards my ex-boyfriend onto my mom. To make matters worse, the week following Labor Day, everyone at school found out about my breakup. My close friends even started laughing at me, and it became painfully clear that it seemed like everyone I cared about had turned their backs on me. If it weren't for the evidence on the camcorder, I might have started doubting my own sanity, especially because my dad began to question my credibility. As a final resort and an insurance policy of sorts, I went into my brother's room and retrieved the recorded tape from the camcorder. After exposing my mom and seeing her use my heartbreak and betrayal against me to manipulate my dad, I wasn't aware that my dad had bought into her story. I had bought into her story until a few days later. During that time, my mom's behavior changed drastically. She became rude and gave me the silent treatment. We started having arguments, and she would constantly remind me that I was the reason my boyfriend had dumped me, adding that nobody trusted me. That's when I realized that my dad had indeed accepted her version of events. When I finally had a chance to speak with my dad about the situation, he didn't explicitly say that he didn't trust my story, but he kept going in circles, clearly indicating his doubt. It wasn't until I showed him the recorded video that he finally understood that I'd been telling the truth. It was disheartening that I had to go to such lengths for him to believe me. However, in hindsight, if I were in his shoes with a trusting wife who had always been responsible and respected, and a troubled teenage daughter with a broken heart, I might have found it challenging to believe my daughter too. After my dad had seen the recorded footage, he confronted my mom, showed her the video, and then asked for a divorce. I vividly remember the heated argument that night. My mom attempted to evade responsibility for her actions, constantly changing her story. Even when the evidence was glaringly clear, she refused to admit to her actions, according to my dad. However, my dad reached a point where he could no longer forgive her. In short, my parents made the difficult decision to get a divorce, and my dad shared the video with the wife of the other man involved. The neighbor and his wife decided to try to work on their marriage, but unfortunately separated about a year later, eventually selling their home. My mom went so far as to label me a homewrecker and claimed that everyone had been happy until I spoke up. Strangely, she never admitted to the affair, but still accused me of being the one who had exposed it. It's safe to say that my relationship with my mom has remained strained to this day. Even though I now have children of my own, she has tried to reach out and offer help to my siblings. However, it's been too late for that, as she should have done it years ago. She held a grudge against me for speaking the truth and hoped that I would apologize to her. She felt betrayed, but at the time, I was dealing with a lot of trauma and her actions were just making things more complicated. Perhaps God intended for me to expose her by placing me in that difficult situation. After the divorce, my two older brothers were already in college, and I was the only one under 18. I stayed with my dad, who supported me and expressed his gratitude for my honesty in telling him the truth. My mom and aunt continued to blame me, asserting that I had caused the family's destruction and negatively impacted my dad's life as well. They argued that my dad never remarried, and he passed away at the age of 67 due to a heart attack. In contrast, my mom had remarried just a year after her divorce from my dad. What my mom and aunt didn't understand was that I had a close relationship with my dad, and I knew he hadn't lived a miserable life. They equated marriage with happiness for him, but I had never seen him happier than after he divorced my mom. He was free to do whatever he wanted. He spent more time fishing and golfing, and traveling to other countries. I only remember him dating one woman. But I was pretty sure he was also meeting women from other countries during his travels.